Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Spiritually Savvy. I am your host, Savannah Pidcock. I am a spiritual teacher, intuitive coach, Akashic Records channel, and quantum energy healer. And I'm here to tell you all about my wild human life and the crazy things that happen in it, and the experiences that I have, and what spiritual wisdom learnings growth I glean from them. So, this podcast is a really deep personal share of my life, tying it back to the lessons that I learned from the human experiences I have. And I'm so excited to have you here. I think we've finally figured out the 4K video. I'm hoping, because for this podcast, I got a new and improved brand new camera. And then I don't think I set it up right because I was looking at the edits that my editor gave me out of the first episode. And I was like, oh, this didn't really come out quite as I planned, but the content was really good. I actually recorded that episode essentially a full month ago almost. It was funny because I talked a lot in that episode about being in my late luteal phase, and now I have my period again, though I got it really early. And as a sidebar, I think I know what's going on with that. It's really interesting. I'm deeply involved in the plant medicine community now. I have a whole group of friends and women and men that I know from that world. I have sat with ayahuasca 8 times in the last 10 months, and this other plant called acacia once, which is a really beautiful medicine. It was used in the Egyptian temples as part of priestess initiation back in the day, and I'm positive I was there in a past life, so I really resonated with that one as well. It's not quite as intense as Aya, if you're familiar with ayahuasca, but all that to say, in the last year, I've gotten to know some really, really special, beautiful people out of that world. On my old podcast, I actually had an episode about my very first sit with Aya because it was very profound and powerful. It was one of those things that I've done that there was a distinct before and after of who I was before and then who I became after. And there's genuinely no going back from that. I actually 2 weeks ago did another really powerful sit. It was over Memorial Day weekend. And I'm still very much in the early integration phase of that, but it feels like another one of those. There's a distinct version of me before and version of me after. And you know what? I'm here for it. I love that because it's bringing me closer and closer to who I am on an authentic soul level. And not easy work, really requires me to release a lot of attachments and a lot of conditioning, a lot of programming, a lot of things that my human would rather not let go of. But it's brought me into a really beautiful relationship with myself, brought me into connection to my purpose and the business that I now run in a really special and beautiful way. So, anyway, just talking about that because I know a lot of people in that community. I sit with the same facilitators for Aya every single time. I don't think I'll ever sit with anyone else, and they're phenomenal. And my shaman in that space, Sunny, he was running a sit this weekend that I part of me really wanted to go to because it's in Sedona and I love Sedona and I've been in a long time. And my soul is just like, give me everything. Let's do everything right now. And then the human's like, okay, let's slow down a little bit, Savannah. We got to integrate this. We got to, breathe this into our reality. We have to be with this. We can't, just blow open the subconscious every weekend. But anyway, I thought about going to the set that they're doing right now. It's a 2-night. Usually the ones in the US are 2 nights. So they were sitting last night and they're sitting tonight. And I was supposed to get my period in a few days, and it came really early and it came really heavy. And I feel like because I'm really deeply connected to a lot of the people at that experience and they're having a really deep experience, it's just fascinating how our bodies process energy and connect into people who are nowhere physically near us. And everything is energy. So I don't know exactly what that's happening. It could just be I just got my period early and I'm like making up this whole story around it. But all that to say, I recorded the first episode about a month ago, I think. And it was funny because I was explaining like, oh, I've had resistance to this for the last 4 months and I'm finally doing it. And well, spoiler alert, I had a lot of other resistance come up since then. And I feel like I've finally gotten to a place with it that I'm just like, you know what? We don't need to make this a big, huge fucking deal, human Savannah. Like, we just need to do it and see what happens from it. And there's been a lot of learnings and downloads and things that have been kind of crystallizing into my system over the last few days around if you have a really big global mission and you have a sense that you're meant to really have a wide reach and impact, and maybe you feel like you're meant to be famous or you're meant to be widely known, and part of that is real intuitive knowing. It's real, and I work with a lot of women are drawn to me that have these big global missions as well, and it can feel really overwhelming. And I've been having this drop in over the last few days where I'm realizing that the more resistance we experience, the bigger our mission, because the human's really afraid of holding all of that responsibility. Your ego is afraid of change always. And there's a lot of change. It's an identity shift that comes with stepping into deeper and deeper layers of our spiritual mission and really who we're meant to be. And the magnitude of that when you have a really big mission can be terrifying. Speaking of ayahuasca, in my very first retreat, I remember talking to one of the facilitators, Lauren, outside on the deck of this beautiful temple space that we were doing this medicine in Costa Rica. It was, but I was really going through it. I was really having a hard time at that point in time in the ceremony and the experience. And I was just sobbing because I was like, I'm afraid of holding this level of responsibility and authority over other people's lives. And people at that point in time, I barely had any clients. Like, it was like was focused on a whole other business that I was doing, and different story for a different day. But it's been really interesting that now I have lots of clients and I'm making full-time money off of my business, and I don't feel that way anymore. So I guess I bring this up because it can feel really scary and really real and really terrifying, and those are real emotions that need to be addressed and worked through. And at the same time, I'm so fucking glad I did, because I wouldn't be in this position right now if I didn't navigate the fear I had around what I'm doing right now. And same thing with the podcast. So we're here, we're doing it. I'm Tanner because it's been beautiful this week in New York, and I had a lovely, pretty chill week, honestly. And it was perfect because it was everything I needed with this integration of a lot of different deep work, both in plant medicine ceremonies and outside of plant medicine ceremonies, because this is my entire life now. What I do every day is just let's go deeply inward and heal some shit and do the damn thing. So it can be pretty drastic if we're not really spending time to bring that into our bodies and to just be with it and spend time in the sun and spend time in nature and spend time playing and being just as much of a human as you are a soul. We're 100% human, 100% soul. It's a teaching from the book Mary Magdalene Revealed. It's an excellent book if you haven't read it. And it's something that I really firmly believe in. And it's why it's so important to not just spin out and not to get so caught up in the channeling and the esoteric and the ceremonies and the things. And I love all of those things. They are genuinely fun for me, but also like, you're a human. Like, go play, go out at night, go dance, go make a mistake, go date that guy, like whatever, like go have fun with it as well. So anyway, just a little tangent on where I'm currently at and what I've kind of been moving through. It's the beginning of June as I'm recording this, and I have a lot of fun stuff coming up in the business in the next few months. I'm going to be doing another launch for my group program towards the end of this month. I'm sure I'll be sharing much more about that on this podcast and on all my social media. We're going to be going into confidence and feminine empowerment energetics, and I'm so excited to teach on this because it's something that has really changed my life. And I come from a place of really fucking hating myself. Like, I used to hate myself on such a deep level. It was so innate and ingrained into me and conditioned into me from how I grew up and just ancestral, not even necessarily my parents, but really deep ancestral self-hatred that I've been dismantling on a deeper level over the last few months. And the relationship I'm cultivating at this level and layer with myself is like fucking profound. It's something, it's a frequency, it's a way of being that I so deeply want to transmit to every woman I possibly can, because it truly changes your entire life. Yes, I teach abundance, I teach intuition, I teach embodiment work. I teach on a lot of different topics, but the crux of everything that I teach about really has this undercurrent of coming into right relationship with yourself and self-worth, and cultivating that deep level of love for yourself, because that impacts everything. It impacts the type of relationships you're able to call in, the type of money that you're able to make, how much you believe in yourself to go after your dreams. Like it's the beginning and end of it all. The relationship, the connection into yourself is the beginning and end of it all. So it's really cool stuff. And I just continue to deepen my study with that over my life. And I'm so excited to share more about what I've cultivated over this last like almost 11 years of a spiritual journey that I've been on with the next module of the group. So that's coming up. I'm doing a couple of retreats, and those details are going to be dropping on social if they haven't already by the time you're listening to this. So really excited. Big shit poppin', and also some fun travel plans for Europe in July. So more content for the pod, more wild stories. But that's kind of what I'm moving through right now. I wanted to play catch up a little bit because I know the first episode of Spiritually Savvy was centered around the very beginning of 2025 and what I was moving through with the fires in LA and processing it and really releasing deeper levels of attachment to a very significant relationship that was in my life. And what ended up happening, I wanted to go into some more detail around what happened in that stretch of time, because I ended up in this area of Encinitas called Lucadia, and it's like a bougie surfer hippie section of Encinitas. Encinitas is actually a city, and I wasn't super familiar with North County, San Diego before I spent 5 weeks there, 6 weeks there. And Lucadia, so cute, so adorable. I loved it. I think by the end of the time there, I was like, okay, it's time to get back to my city life, because I do like variety and lots of access and walkability and fun things to do. But it was a beautiful stretch of time. And I wanted to talk about a few really cool, intuitively led decisions that transpired during that point in time. So, first of all, the fact that I was even in that area was a very guided decision. I talked about this on the last episode around meeting my friend Alexa down in Mission Beach. And then I was essentially just using my intuition to pick places for where I was going to go next. I picked Oceanside. We didn't really love Oceanside that much, neither her nor I. It wasn't really the vibe. But then we went to Encinitas. We went right on Neptune Ave, which is like the Ocean Ave of Encinitas. And it's like a beautiful street right across from the beach. We got this sick ass house, again, based on intuition. They gave us a beautiful deal because of what was everything that was going on with LA and the fires. And then when I felt really strongly that I needed to stay there. I was, in a very big push growth phase with my business. And I was like, I can't keep bopping around Airbnb to Airbnb week to week here. My apartment in New York was rented out. I had some people in my family ask me, like, well, why don't you just go home? And I was like, because it's fucking January in the Northeast. Like, I don't, why would I want to be there? I was like, I think I'd rather be like bopping around Airbnbs with like wildfire issues than in New York City in dead of winter. January is like not good here. Not good here. I think everyone can agree to that. And my parents still live in the town I grew up in outside of Boston. So weather's exactly the same, if not worse there. I could have obviously gone there as well. And I thought about it for like a second and I was like, no. Like I'm out here. I'm in Southern California. Like I know I don't know anyone in these places, but it's fine. Like I'm a very social person. And I also was like, I kind of need to buckle down right now and really, really focus 100% of my energy on the business anyway. So, sort of the distractions that exist for me in my life in New York and my life in LA weren't really there because I didn't have a network. So, I was like, all right, maybe this is a good thing. And I felt really strong that I needed to stay in this area, Lucadia. And there's other towns. I kind of looked at Cardiff by the sea. There's other little towns around that area. And no, I was like, I want to be in Lucadia. And ended up renting for a month this like upgraded like mobile home. It was like a mini house. All of the prices on everything on Airbnb because of what was happening in LA were pretty nuts. And there wasn't a ton of availability. So that was a little bit unfortunate. It wasn't like the best spot ever, but it was fine. And it served the need, which was the place and the area I wanted to be in. And I needed to really just like be in one spot. So I booked it for a month. And then I was kind of like, all right, what are we doing while we're here? And I'd had this intuitive nudge that was sort of going on in the back of my mind that I was like, I'm going to learn how to surf. Like I'm going to learn how to surf. I was going to Costa Rica in March for my next ayahuasca retreat. So I was like, I want to learn how to do this. There was a guy I was dating last year who was into surfing, and I was always kind of like, like I want to try that. I'd heard it was really hard. I have a really close friend, Kel, who lives in Bali, and she had been, we talk every day, and she surfs a lot, and I knew it was hard. But I was like, you know what? I work out all the time. Like I have like great core strength. Like we're going to figure this out, whatever. So I'm like, okay, that's going to be my little thing that I do while I'm here. I'm going to learn how to surf. And Lucadia is a surf town. Encinitas is like a surf haven. And there was tons of options. I think I Googled like surf instructor Lucadia. There were so many options. And my intuition was like, no, you need to go to this specific instructor. I had walked by, well, Alexa and I had a spot together, the spot on Neptune Ave. I had walked by a spa when I was getting coffee in the morning with my dog. And the spa was super cute. And they had a QR code up outside of the spa that I pulled up on my phone. And it took you to the website for the spa. But on the website for the spa, there was a link for surf lessons. And I didn't think much of it at the time. And then I get this intuitive nudge, like, you got to do surf lessons. I'm like, okay. Kind of kept coming up. And when I went to go search for an instructor, I get that ping again, like, no, you need to go to that surf instructor. And I'm like, okay, because at this point, this is a couple weeks later, and I was like, I don't remember. So I had to like go on maps, and I'm like, what's the spa across the street from the coffee place that's over here? Because I wasn't really living in that exact area anymore. And then I find the website, I find the surf lessons, I click on it, and I'm like, all right, like this looks right. This is a resonant yes. This is giving like, do this. And I didn't really, I do this so often. You'll hear me say this around intuitively led decisions in my life. When it feels like a really strong yes, I don't really read the fine print. I just kind of run with it. And sometimes I think it's because my higher self is like genuinely blocking me from getting all the information, from my mind having all the information, so I can like overthink and then hold myself up. Like, for example, speaking of plant medicine, if I really knew everything that was involved in ayahuasca when I signed up for the first retreat, like no fucking way would I have done it. Like I had no idea that you couldn't drink caffeine before, that you had to give up sex before, like all these things. Like now it's totally fine. Like I have much better relationships with all of those things and better boundaries. But at that point in time, I would have been like, fuck no. Like I was having a total hot girl summer in New York last summer. I was like partying a ton. I was dating people. Like I was like, this isn't for me. Anyway, so classic me, I don't really read like the fine print. So I didn't really read like what this surf thing was about, like, or this particular guy, this company that I don't know. In my head, I was like, all right, it's this man who owns his own surf company. I think maybe he's like, I just pictured him as like this old hippie. I was like, oh, he's probably like this like 56-year-old hippie who like has multiple kids. I don't know. That's what my mind assigned him as. And this was, I think, like during the week, it was towards the beginning of when I was alone in Lucadia because Alexa went back to LA. And at this point, I don't know anybody there. I knew a couple people, like friends of friends from online world, but really, I didn't know anyone there. And so I like set up a lesson with him for that Saturday. And that Saturday rolls around and I was jamming like on my own and really just like relishing all the time alone, not unlike I've been doing lately in New York, which, as a side note, I think is a really powerful indication if you're like really spending, like enjoying and feeling called to spend some deep time alone. It's one of the things to me that indicates like you're on the edge of an up level, like you're coming into like some sort of like big up level in terms of your journey, a quantum leap, if you will. There's a few other signs. Usually, like your body will either drop or gain a little bit of weight. That happens to me often, and it's really annoying because it's energetic. But again, the less that you focus and fixate on it, the faster it kind of like moves through your system. Um, yeah, there's a few things. It's like really feeling called to spend time alone, sleeping a lot, eating differently, losing or gaining weight, kind of just feeling this call overall to go like deeply inward because essentially you're getting to know a different version of you. And you have to know that version of you before you can kind of like bring that version of you forth in the world. So I was vibing. I was spending a lot of time alone. I had kind of like a tradition on Friday nights. This is one of my favorite things to do, honestly, on Friday nights is just to like get high by myself. And when you're in Southern California, you can go to the beach and just like have a whole vibey night. You can go to yoga, you can go to a sound bath, all the things. Yes, I know these things exist in New York. It is just harder to get to all of them when you don't have a car and it's not a driving city, even if you do have a car. So yeah, lesson was on a Saturday. And that Saturday, I think I took a microdose. I took some like chocolate mushrooms and I was just like vibing on the beach, and I took a little bit more than I intended to take. I had intended to take a very subtle microdose because I knew I had this lesson. It was like a sunset lesson. So it was towards the end of the day on a Saturday, and the mushrooms were still like pretty shroomy by the time I showed up to this lesson, but like I was vibing, you guys. Like I was on such a cloud nine driving to this lesson. Like I think I have a video recording of me in the car because I was just like singing, I was dancing, I was like, fuck, I just like love myself and my energy and everything. And it's always from that place, always when I get into like that energetic, that something like big comes into my life. Some like that's the place from which you manifest, the quantum leap financially, the man. When we are seeking those things, when our want of them is very high, when we're really looking for them, those big shit things in our lives have a harder time coming in than when you're so like rooted in the present and with yourself and loving your energy and loving your experience, then they can drop in really, really, really easily. So I was in that beautiful space that we love being in that space and vibing out. And I get to this lesson, and the instructor's like texting me, the guy who owns this like lesson company. And again, I'm like picturing him as this like old crusty hippie, and I'm just like, okay. And he's like he's giving me instructions like where to park, like what beach we are going to, blah blah blah. And so I do all of that, and I get down. I didn't really park in the right place because again, I'm like a little mushroomy. And so I had to walk down to where he was, and it was hysterical because I get there and I realize like, oh fuck, this dude's like my age and he's like really hot. Like he is not a crusty old hippie. He's like literally this very cute surfer boy. And we had a very silly time because we were both just like heavy flirting with the other person. I don't think either one of us expected that. And you know, I love being somebody. Well, I have such a love hate with being somebody who's so energetically sensitive because it does come with a lot of challenges, and it's a lot of ways that I've had to learn how to navigate really being so sensitive to other people's energy bodies and my own energy being so sensitive. But one of the cool things when you are really energetically sensitive is when you come across a soul tie, when you come across some sort of past life connection and you're like, oh, I have known you. Like, this is not the first time we have met. And you can pick up on it right away. And it's like this instantaneous, like, I just know you. There's a familiarity there. You find yourself kind of like laughing and joking around and sharing things that you're like, why am I telling this person this? Like, I just met you 5 minutes ago. But yet, like, there's just a really, really strong resonance. And Surfer Daniel and I had a very, very strong resonance. So I end up having this like really silly lesson with him because we're flirting with each other, and I was on like a little bit of mushrooms, which I told him about. And then so I started telling him like, okay, I'm just like here by myself because of the fires. I run my business, like this, and that, and telling him like about my life. And it was a Saturday evening. So I was like, so what do people do around here who are like our age? Because I think he's a year younger than me, but essentially the same age. And he was like, well, my friends and I are going to this show tonight. He's like, I don't know if it's really up your alley, but it's like an EDM, like kind of like burner-esque thing. And I was like, oh, sir, that's the only thing I like doing at night. I'm like, we either go 110% like out hard, or like I just would rather watch Netflix. Like there is no in between. And I love music. I love dancing. I love EDM. I love raving. So he invites me and he's like, all right, it's a whole crew of us. He was actually really, and again, we're flirting. He had been dating somebody really casually for a few weeks. So he was like, oh, this girl will be there. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Like, I just met you 5 minutes ago. Um, and yeah, I was like, I think I'm gonna come. So he ends up picking me up that night, and I end up in this whole like really fun night out in San Diego, which is about half an hour from where I was living. Very, very cool party. It was just, I think it was at some place called like Spin. I don't know. I can't remember all the specifics now because it was a few months ago, but absolute fucking vibe. And my plan was, ravey EDM stuff can go really late, and I'm again like in this like very focused time frame with my business. But my plan was like, okay, I'm gonna go and then I'm gonna just Uber home around 1. So it gets around to like 1 a.m. And, I'm hanging with him, I'm hanging with his other friends. I met like one of his girlfriends, actually, like friends who's a girl. She ended up becoming like a client of mine. We're still in touch. She's like a total gem as well. I was with her, like with the whole crew, and also just like kind of bopping around, having like a time because it was a really cool setup in there. A lot of great costumes that people were in, like really cool like burlesque like shows and different dancers, and just all around like great music, great vibes, all the things. So it's around 1 a.m. and I'm like getting tired, and I'm like, okay, like, do I go home? And my intuition is like, no, like, you are not going home right now. And I'm like, really? Because like my human's fucking tired, but my intuition's telling me like, do not go home. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna like I'll give it till 1:30. Let me just like see. And I'm just kind of dancing, vibing. I wasn't drinking. To be honest, I really haven't been drinking much this year. Pretty much every time I do, it brings my mood down. So I've been dabbling a lot with like sober curious lifestyle, sober curious with like a mushroomy spin. I do love the plants. I like cannabis. I like mushrooms. I'm not big into other types of synthetic party drugs, like to each their own. I spent many, many years very addicted to cocaine. So I just the synthetics, and I do love MDMA, but it's just incredibly, incredibly hard on my body and my mood. So yeah, we don't dabble in those very often. But I think so. I wasn't drinking. I was on mushrooms a little, like a little bit of like more than I took for the surf lesson earlier in the day. But I'm just dancing, and all of a sudden, like, I start getting into just like the zone. Like, I'm coming into like a really deep level of embodiment of my own energy, my own power. I was alone. I'd sort of lost the group at this point in time. And I was like, so I'm hearing intuitions like, you got to get up. They had these like elevated surfaces, which is hilarious because in the frat scene where I went to college, the elevated surfaces were like such a thing. Like we were always like, get on the elevated surface. And like it was a very like college-esque thing for me. But they had all these like risers that you could go and dance on. And most of the time they were filled with people because it was a big crowd. And one of them kind of opened up and my intuition was like, go get on that riser. And I'm like, fuck, really? Like, I don't know if I want to be like but you know, I listen as best I can when I get those pings. So I go get on the riser and like a Madonna song comes on, like a Madonna remixed EDM song. And I just start fucking like vibing out so hard. At some point, Surfer Daniel comes and finds me and he was like, who are you right now? And I'm like, I don't know. I just met you earlier today. It was really, really fun. And we had a lot of fun while I was in that area. I think the following few Saturdays, I ended up at different parties with him. And then towards the end of my time there, we did end up hooking up a few times, which was also really, really fun and really beautiful because, you know, I am such a lover girl and I spent so much of my dating history really like in these like intense, like serious dynamics. And it was really interesting to play around with this type of connection where there was an intensity to it. There was like a deep, like emotional, like connection there. But I also was like, this person isn't my person. There's a lifestyle mismatch here. Like I'm trying to like have, you know, 5 homes and make millions of dollars and live all over the world. And I love travel. And he was like super fucking happy living where he lives and doing what he does and was totally content with that. And there's a beauty in that. And it was interesting for me to kind of be around that also while I was in this deep growth phase in my business because, you know, being an entrepreneur is really hard. Building your own thing from scratch is really fucking hard. And sometimes we forget our why. And I was pretty used to making really good money in corporate. And I've been essentially living like I'm still making that money in the years since I left as well. So it had been a really long time since I didn't have freedom with my money to some extent. Obviously, I can't do anything I want, but for the most part, if I want to do something, I'm going to go and do it. And it was really interesting to be around him because he doesn't make that kind of money and he didn't have a lot of freedom and flexibility. It doesn't bother him. Like he's totally cool with it. I was, you know, kind of having that experience vicariously through him. And I was like, oh, like this is why I need to scale this upward. This is why I need to, you know, definitely make more money than what I have been at and in the long term because I don't want to run my life that way. I think money's a tool. Money's a really beautiful way that we can have different experiences. And yeah, you need it to have experiences to participate in the world to some extent. It's just a fucking amplifier. It's a tool to amplify the experiences you're already having. So it was really helpful for me to get that reflection of why. Like, why is it so important to me to grow this business? Why do I need to make the money I desire to make? And it was just really cool for me too to own my power and my sexuality in a dynamic with somebody else that I wasn't like, oh my God, we need to get married. Like, you need to be my boyfriend. It was just like, no, this gets to be what it is in the here and the now. And it is cool that we have this like soul resonance and we understand each other so deeply and we like the same kind of music and we can just like talk for hours. Like, I love that type of connection. But just because it is that type of connection doesn't mean I need to turn you into my husband. And as a triple Pisces, that is a lover girl lesson that has really been profound for me and really helped me deepen my understanding of relating romantically. And it's really cool when we can be more in our power. And let me tell you, like the sex in that relationship, the mini relationship it was like 15 out of 10 because I was so solid in myself in that dynamic. And it's really cool how our sexuality, how we experience relationships, how we experience connection, emotionally and mentally and physically on all the different levels of being evolves as we evolve. And because I've mostly been single, like I've been dating, but I haven't been in a serious relationship for like 2 years now. So it's just been kind of really fun to play in these different dynamics and to understand a little bit more, I would say, of like a masculine interpretation of relating romantically, where it is what it is. Like it gets to be fun. It gets to be present. And I think we're conditioned as women to like really really hold our sexuality so tightly and to not share it with those who don't deserve it. And it's not that I disagree with that, but it's like, what if it just gets to be more fun and playful? And what if it just gets to be an experience and it doesn't need to lead to deep commitment? And that's also really beautiful. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for that deep commitment to materialize its way into my life, let's have some fucking fun. So many beautiful lessons that I gleaned from hanging with Surfer Daniel. And I wouldn't have had any of those experiences if I hadn't had this like kind of wild goose chase my intuition was sending me on. Like, no, it has to be this specific surf instructor from this spa that you walked by. So pull up the QR code on maps, like all these things. I was like, what am I doing? But it totally made sense once I realized, like, oh, this is like a soul level connection, and I haven't, you know, they don't come around very often. There are a good amount of them, and it's interesting. The deeper I go into my own journey and my work, the more I find, particularly like friends, like more women. I actually had an experience just this past week where out of my last ayahuasca sit, there was a pretty strong directive coming through for me. A few really strong ones that I'm sitting with. One of them was to close down the communication channel between my ex's sister and I, which seemed kind of odd. Like I was fighting against it because I was like, well, I don't really talk to her every day, like especially because I'm not in LA right now. So like we weren't in constant communication. Like my ego didn't like that one because I was like, well, this doesn't make sense. And I sat with it as one does, after those types of experiences. The guidance is always, even if you have sort of something big and revelatory come through to you, and or like a decision or a change that needs to be made, like sit with it. Like they always say, don't have any harsh conversations, don't make any big decisions for at least 5 days. This one I sat with for like almost 2 weeks, and it was just this week that I sent her this like really long, sad voice note. And I was like, it's just for now, it's not forever. Cause I really love her on such a deep level. But I do think, there definitely was something about having that sort of like energetic thread still open and negatively impacting me in some level. I don't really know all the details. I don't want to ask and go into it, but I was just like, I'm just going to trust. But it was hard. It was hard to have that conversation because I really love her. She has been a really beautiful support and kind of like a big sister to me, even though she's his sister. But like, I didn't grow up with a big sister. So, and just the way that we relate is really different than how my family members relate. And it's really this beautiful, like nurturing, supportive frequency that I love so much. So I had that conversation with her this week, and it was funny, like was hard. And I immediately went to the gym because I was like, I need to process some of these emotions. It was actually harder than I thought it was going to be because, again, we weren't talking very often. So I was like, why do I have to do this? But I did it. And there's a trend here if you haven't noticed. Like, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to follow the fucking guidance, even though I don't know why. And that's a lot of this process of living in alignment to your intuition. Like sometimes we get to know why, and oftentimes we don't get to know why, and we just kind of have to roll with it. And you trust, and you develop that trust on even deeper and deeper levels over time, and it always works out in the long run, even in the short term. If your human's like, I don't like this. So I had that conversation with her, and then while I was at the gym, I got a text from a woman I met at the IASIT that I had this really strong connection with. Her name is Tanine, and she's amazing. She's also Persian. I just thought it was kind of funny. I'm like, okay, so I had to like cut out this one connection right now, and then pretty much immediately I get like a phone call and a text from this new connection. So I explain all of that to say that, the initial years of my spiritual awakening felt really fucking lonely. Like I just really, I barely knew anybody who was into this type of stuff at the time. It was a lot less common in the collective. I just felt deeply, deeply alone. And it's been really a lovely side effect of getting deeper and deeper into my work, where I continue to meet soul resonant people, particularly women and soul aligned clients, are the best too. Because it doesn't feel like work. I really know deeply how to help them. We have fun doing it. It makes the work feel really fun. And part of the reason that I run a community and my group program, because it's a course and a program and I teach in it, but it's also really a community. And the reason I'm so big on events and meetups and I'm getting into retreats this year is because we need other people on this path. We need other people who are truly like vibing at the same frequency that you are, who are growing with you. And part of this is also sad sometimes because we might, for temporarily or potentially forever, fall out of resonance with people as well. And that's part of it. And that's been something I've had to navigate too, of certain friendships or connections pausing or ending, and being okay with that and trusting that the universe abhors a vacuum. So anytime you're creating space, like I did literally in that conversation I had earlier this week, and within an hour I had like that space getting filled socially. So it doesn't always happen that fast. Things happen kind of quickly in my life because I'm meant to teach and guide others on it, but it's a really cool thing. So if you're I think I say all of this because if you are intuitively feeling led to release something from your life, if you are feeling like you need to let go of something, but you're human struggling with it, just know that there's always something more beautiful, more aligned that is coming to fill that place that you create. The space that you make by releasing it has to get filled. It's an energetic law. So you're just holding yourself back from your blessings by resisting that change. And I fucking get it. I have a fat ass ego. My soul chose quite the ego to go with her power. And it's been a lot of my journey contending with that. It's why I teach how to navigate a very powerful ego in my group work, because so many of my clients have the same thing. And just means you have a big fucking mission to serve. It just means you're meant to do big things. The more resistance you are experiencing around things, the bigger mission, gifts, wisdom you have to share with the world. So, with that, I'm going to close out this episode. I did a good job putting the mic on the stand this time. And I hope you enjoyed hearing about some of my shenanigans back in Encinitas. We're going to play a little bit of catch up on this podcast. So I'm going to go back through like the last few months, and then we're going to get to the current time. Today I was kind of relating as well into what has happened in the last few weeks. But I really want to have this be like a deep, raw, personal share. So as much it's like a little uncomfortable for me to talk about my sex life on my podcast, I think it's really important to share those aspects of being a human, because it's all part of it, baby. All right. I love you guys so much. Let me know how you are liking this new format of the pod. I can't wait to connect either in real life or online in the online ether space. And we will talk soon. Love you. Bye bye.